Hello, everyone. Welcome to Bitcoin, Not Crypto live stream. We do this weekly at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And today we are live, or at least we should be, on Zapstream. I'm just checking it out now. This is a nostr protocol for live streaming. And also it should also be on Primal and Damus and Amethyst and all the other streaming services that are connected to, or all the other nostr clients that have compatibility with streaming. So the reason I'm doing that in part is I was recently demonetized off of YouTube. It actually surprisingly wasn't because of Bitcoin content. Trouble streaming to your destination. Dang, Zapstream is not working. Let's see. Zapstream. Dang. Yeah. I do want to figure this out, but this is kind of the thing. This is one of the things about Nostr is like it's competitive, or it's competing against. Well, it's an underlying protocol that people can build clients on, but that protocol has added complexity to it, which is useful in a lot of ways, but that added complexity needs worked out, and there needs to be a lot of people developing on it, which there are, but there's still a lot of issues. Zapstream does have an app. Nice to see you, Josh, and Naughty Vlogs. What's up? Yeah, they do have an app, but it's brand new. I would recommend going to zap.stream and actually downloading it from there, so you make sure you get the right one, especially if you end up entering your Nostr NSEC, your private keys into it at all. You definitely do not want to have downloaded the wrong one. But yeah, problem with getting on Zapstream. But the idea here really is getting into the value to value ecosystem of Nostr. I've been posting a lot more on there, basically retweeting all my tweets into Nostr and trying to. I'm actually planning on making a bunch of videos about Nostr as well, and really trying to showcase how amazing it is as a platform and as a protocol, and the potential for the clients on there. Zapstream, I think, has huge potential. And the reason is because I've been demonetized off YouTube. I have zero feedback. I've been demonetized since September 22nd. I literally just have to wait. It's completely out of my hands, and I'm losing a ton of money because of it. It's really not a good system to be reliant on one centralized platform. And centralization, I mean, this is part of what drew me to Bitcoin, is centralization is such a problem in so many massive ways. And I have relied so much in my history on YouTube, with filmmaking and everything. I've always been trying to figure out other ways to publish my content, post my movies, whatever, so that I don't have to rely on YouTube too much. And I think Nostr is this way of being able to do this. I don't think it can fully replace it, unless you're at a certain stage, or you just can't fully replace it without sacrificing the audience that YouTube can bring people. So I think there's a place for both, but I think Nostr is a much more fair, decentralized way of being able to control your own content. And with that, if you do want, because you can't do super chats on here until I get the monetization back, if you do want to send in a little bit of value here to the YouTube channel, to what I do here, you can send a zap over the Lightning Network to that QR code. And we'll get into a couple things here. So it's dot day for me, which means a Bitcoin buy. And I posted that on Twitter, posted that on Nostr, posted that on YouTube. You might have seen it. But basically, we had our all-time high buy right here. The least amount of sats. We only got 56,672 sats for the $100 Canadian. And that is our 8th buy in a row in a week here. Every single week, you can see these stair steps. And what's interesting here is you can finally see that, this dip below, this is sort of just, this graph is like showing metrics of dollar value compared to sat value. You can see this massive upswing is not only from a buy, but also just this gradual increase in the value. So we're actually up $84 Canadian on our $800 purchase. So we're almost up an entire week's buy on this portfolio. And I kind of want to tell you guys a little bit of insight here about why I'm doing this. I think I'm doing this for multiple reasons. I'm doing this because it's fun. I think I want to have more people posting that they're buying Bitcoin. I don't think we need to out our entire stack. I just think I think we need to normalize the everyday average person buying Bitcoin and holding that as a savings tool. And I think that this is what this shows, right? If somebody's paid weekly, if somebody has a little bit of extra savings every week, they could put in their savings into Bitcoin. And that's what this is showing, right? I'm buying the dips, I'm buying the highs, I'm buying just indiscriminately every single week. And it's also showing, so it's doing that. And it's also showing how dollar cost, like the actual strategy of a dollar cost average, which is not the most efficient way, right? Like I could have bought here. Let's see, the market price was 170. Oh, no, this is 175. So let's go all the way down. It's basically here. Market price is 155,000 Canadian. My average cost is 159,000. So if I had just lump summed when I first initially thought of buying this amount of Bitcoin, I would actually be up, because dollar cost averaging on a asset that goes up and to the right means that you're going to be able to get less of it, right? You're getting an earnings decrease if you save in sats and throughout time, because your dollar earning wage or salary or income is actually buying you less sats over time. So that's kind of what this is showing, right? Is a dollar cost average strategy is good for a lot of people for like the kind of ability to just set it up and leave it. It's good for the ability to just not have to emotionally think about, oh, did I buy the high? Did I buy the dip? Am I going to have to double down here? Should I take some off the top? Like, it just takes the thinking out of it, which is really valuable. But this also shows that it's not the best strategy over time, which there's historical people that have done studies of that, and that shows to be accurate and true. The other thing that this does, what else does this do? This is going to show basically, it's going to take a while. I'm already $800 in, and I'm halfway to my goal. I haven't really made this too public, not on Twitter where I post this and stuff. I have talked about this actually last week as well. My idea here is that I'm going to get to 1 million sats, right? Just an even million sats. And then I'll make a post about transferring the ownership of these sats to Pleb Tools, which it's on the Pleb Tools treasury, but I announce it as I'm buying it. And once it's at 1 million sats, this will be the treasury of Pleb Tools. And Pleb Tools will be able to operate indefinitely into the future by using that Bitcoin. When the domain needs to come up, if there's any fees associated with hosting, if there's any costs, it comes out of the treasury. And the value of the treasury at 1 million sats will outpace any costs with this open source, really simple project. And within there will be the ability to donate to devs, to pay people to contribute. But basically, it shows that a simple Bitcoin treasury can extend the runway of an operating company and business. And this will play out, like, this is like low time preference idea that I have here. That'll play out years and years of just having this as a stagnant treasury. Maybe we'll get more donations, right? This is connected to my nostr. So actually all of these donations that I've gotten, which are, it's showing donated BTC is, 2,700 sats. That's all through nostr apps actually on my account. And I just include that as donations. You can donate to the actual project, which would also go to there as well. But yeah, it's fun little donation chart. So maybe that'll grow the treasury beyond 1 million sats, and that will even outpace it. But I think, and maybe we'll create something profitable within here, some sort of software that's open source but still has some sort of cost, or I don't know. I like the donation, I like the affiliate because it doesn't cost anything to the people that actually use it. Anybody actually using my affiliate stuff is actually going to earn big, or like, discounts, bonus rewards, earn free sats. And this is basically, the coaching is the only thing that you're paying for directly, but that's a service that I offer myself. So yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about a little bit today. Oh, one other thing here. I just partnered with this really cool new company. Well, not new to me. It's called Market, or Mark 37, and they have privacy devices. I partnered with them because their prices are insane. They're so cheap, and I also got a 5% discount code, which should be linked in the description. Otherwise, it's BNC if you guys do want to do this. But I basically used a Pixel 7 Pro right here, and turned it into a ghost phone using Graphene OS, which is exactly what they do, but they just sell it to you. So there's a little bit of a markup for their service of doing that, but that might make sense for privacy for you. But yeah, partnered with them. I don't know. I think that privacy is a underrated aspect of your journey as a Bitcoiner, and I think that devices like this could really help you. So yeah, affiliate link in the description. If not, just punch in code BNC. You'll get 5% off of anything you buy on here. And they actually do a free consultation. This is crazy. They have a bunch of resources that are really good. I actually might have the founder of this company on my podcast at some point to kind of talk really in depth about privacy. But they actually do a free consultation. I think it's like a 30-minute free consultation of like figuring out your privacy needs, which is really cool. Or like, they also have some sort of troubleshooting thing too that they can help you with. It's actually like very generous, what they do. And the other thing too is, like, I looked into a bunch of companies because I wanted to do like, I did this series on my Pixel, right? This is my Graphene OS Pixel that I did. And I looked into all these privacy phones, and what I realized is that, like, I don't know, more than half of them actually just take Graphene OS, do some proprietary changes that are now make it like half open source, half closed source, and then release it as a privacy phone. And everything that they did that is not open source is now completely endangering your privacy. There has been a lot of historical examples of privacy phones being literally created by intelligence agencies to um, to track people that are doing criminal activity, right? And that none of this should be for criminals. This is just to keep your own data away from these data collection companies, right? Google, Facebook, all this stuff, right? All they do is build profiles on you with your data, which is just you can avoid to a huge extent by going open source with a Graphene OS phone. Linux open source instead of Windows, which is basically surveillance tech. Same with Apple. Apple's exactly the same. It's a little bit more closed down, but it's still the same thing. Yeah. So I don't know where I was going with that. Oh yeah. A lot of other privacy phones are actually just spyware phones, and you got to be really careful about them. So that's why I partnered with these guys, is because it's literally just Graphene OS, just literally Graphene OS. All right, 65 sats, 65 sats. Nice to see you. Oh, I'm going to pull up my Coinos wallet as well in case anybody is throwing some donos at me. Yeah, we got one. 1,650 sats with no note. That's a good way to get your comment read, though, if you do want to throw some sats up. Yeah, that's just baby wallet at coinos.io as well. Yeah, hello. Okay, Naughty Vlogs. I think maybe an interesting video idea could be, what is most likely to replace the dollar when it fails? What the world will go to, whether it's a BRICS currency, gold, or Bitcoin, or other stuff. Yeah, I mean, currency is really interesting, right? Like the financial system, we think it's very stable because we're born into one, but these things don't last forever, and they sort of typically will explode suddenly, right? Like that's kind of the meme of gradually then suddenly. All of a sudden, the dollars are on the street, the paper's on the street, and it's worth nothing. The US dollar has lasted a lot longer than many other currencies. And with that lasting, the value has gone down, right? The purchasing power of these dollars has gone down. It's basically failed in a lot of ways. I would say it's completely failed as a store of value, which is so funny when all these altcoiners, all they can complain about with Bitcoin is, oh, you guys are focused too much on store of value. It says peer-to-peer digital cash on the white paper. It should be a medium of exchange. Well, guess what works really well as a medium of exchange? The US dollar. And where it fails is in two parts. It's centrally controlled, so the issuance is controlled by one node that can print as much as they want at no cost. The second is that it is not a store of value. So anybody that uses it, that saves in it, is losing. All their value is being extracted out of them, and it forces them to become gamblers and buy assets. So you cannot save in the money, right? This creates a huge ramifications of external events that are caused by the fact that you cannot save in your own money. So the idea that Bitcoin needs to be a medium of exchange more than anything else is ridiculous. It can be used as a medium of exchange. Layer 2s, layer 3s, all of these things make it easier to do so. And the ability to do so makes it more useful, but it is not its sole use case. And it is not the most important thing. It is equally as important, but I think that it exists, but it doesn't mean that it is as useful as the store of value function. I hope that makes sense to you. You might have to listen to that twice and think about that. But to answer your question, Naughty Vlogs, we have never had a major currency failure in a developed nation with access to all of the information that we have now, internet access, ability to buy Bitcoin, even in peer-to-peer ways, which need to develop way more. That's something that is completely lacking. It's crazy to me that as a community, we have allowed centralized exchanges to be the only real way to acquire Bitcoin when it can be used peer-to-peer. And even with Lightning, it can have this layer of privacy and still be used in a peer-to-peer way within these payment channels. It's crazy to me that 99.9% of Bitcoin is being acquired, even in self-custody, from a centralized exchange. We need to build out the infrastructure for peer-to-peer exchanges and decentralized exchanges for Bitcoin specifically. Absolutely. Because of this, right? If you get cut off of the financial system, the fiat financial system, you can't use a centralized exchange. If you get cut off of the fiat financial system, you might still be able to use a peer-to-peer exchange through other means, right? It's a value transfer to acquire Bitcoin. It's not necessarily a bank wire or e-transfer or a ACH or something like that. So yeah, we have never. So what I'm saying here is that Bitcoin, it doesn't care about the financial system. The financial system is tied into it and really taking control of the on and off ramps of that, which I think is a major issue that needs to be addressed. And I don't know, maybe that'll be my next vibe coding project. I don't know. It might be a little out of my depths right now on that, but maybe eventually. But this whole system of Bitcoin is being built. The network, the financial network of being able to transfer value is there. It is liquid. It is active. And it is permissionless, censorship resistant. Anyone can use it. And so it doesn't make sense, although it probably will still be rebooted, right? Typically what happens when a currency fails is turmoil and adoption of a new currency, right? And that new currency, again, is a fiat currency with a new name, a new issuer, new promises, new bullshit. Now people have the choice, right? You can the people that did go to gold, right? That was a smart choice, but it came with an incredible difficulty of acquiring, transporting, and maintaining the safety of that. And then the massive spreads between bid and ask. Bitcoin solves all of that, right? Bitcoin solves all of that, and so it would make sense that everybody would jump on this new network of Bitcoin. Now, will that happen? I think we're still far away from that happening, but I still think we're far away from a total collapse of the US dollar. So maybe by the time that happens, the people will be ready for Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is essentially ready for the people, I would say. So that's kind of what I see happening is by the time the dollar, quote unquote, fails, it won't be, maybe a bunch of people will jump onto a BRICS currency or a new dollar or a euro dollar or something like that. But I think more likely, and that's what will be pushed by the mainstream narrative. Like that's the safe thing to do. But I think by then people will recognize and realize that they can just buy Bitcoin. And I hope that, because it'll save them from completely losing everything. When Pleb Tools convertible bond offering, yeah, we're gonna do a pipe investment. We're waiting for our share price to go to $100 per share. And then we're gonna offer private investors shares at $1, so we can just watch it absolutely ride to the bottom. That's what we're doing first, and then we'll do a convertible bond to add leverage. Jupiter Mojo, speaking of treasuries, interesting to see Bitcoin almost to 126K, yet MSTR still lagging. Here I'm specifically not selling covered calls on MSTR, thinking it's too risky this quarter. Yeah. I mean, it is interesting. It's lagging like crazy. I think that there's a lot more ability to control the market of MSTR than there is the ability to control Bitcoin, right? So when something is more untethered, it is able to run. When something is tethered down by shorts on top of it, by any time that there is a rally in MSTR, that's the time where they can actually issue ATM, and that is the supplying of shares to short sellers. Whereas if they needed to cover from shares that are already existing, that would drive up more demand. But since they're buying shares that are being freshly printed, it is not creating the mini short squeezes. Not people say short squeeze, they think of something massive, but really it's just the covering of shorts, which is buying pressure. So that buying pressure is being partially dampened by the ATM on up days. But that ATM is also what is providing huge amounts of principal and capital. And I mean, MSTR is, yeah, it's based on sentiment a lot, but it massively outperformed Bitcoin. So it makes sense that it sort of begins to underperform so that it gets back to a level where it can outperform again. Doesn't just make sense for it to just completely outperform nonstop when there's so many other things at play. Yeah, we'll see. It does feel like a beach ball, though. The coiled spring, the beach ball under the water. We got another 69 sats here from Work Save Bitcoin. Love that. Appreciate it. And again, that's through that QR code there. Value to value. If you're getting anything from the stream, if you're having fun, I do appreciate the donos a lot. Hello. And 65 sats. Oh, yeah, there we go. 1650 was for me. Speed Wallet, no, it's not working, I guess. Yeah, I've had problems with Speed Wallet before. When I've sent Lightning to somebody on Speed, actually to Jerry Loves Freedom, and he didn't get my note attached to it. So maybe it doesn't work both ways. There's some compatibility issues with Bitcoin Lightning and Nostr wallets and all sorts of stuff. Good morning, team. Hello, Matt, for real. And Solar Satoshi says, yo, BHF, good to see you in the chat. All-time high just hit. New all-time high. Wow. Okay, let's take a look at it. Looks like, actually, let's see, share this tab instead. Let's bring it to the stage. It actually looks like the NASDAQ is hitting all-time highs as well. Not the NASDAQ, S&P. Or maybe that was that NASDAQ. S&P, nope, we're a little bit off of all-time highs. NASDAQ, massive gaps. Oh, I'm in the minute chart. My bad, everybody. I never am in the minute chart. I'm always in the daily chart, so that surprised me. Wow, look at that. I mean, that's crazy. I mean, everybody, I mean, the Bitcoin chart is insane, absolutely insane. But like, this is TradFi, guys. TradFi is insane as well right now. Like everything is just absolutely rocketing. I mean, gold is insane. Like this is where I was trading, like back here, 2022, I had some gold and gold stocks, miners, different things. Like these are the levels I was at with gold, right? It's doubled since then. Gold doubling. You guys know how significant that is? Like the debasement trade, I think, who was it? Maybe it was JP Morgan that mentioned that or something. The debasement trade is absolutely alive and well. Like it's crazy. Here we go. All-time highs. Again, all-time highs in your net worth, all-time lows in your earnings. Because you should be pricing your earnings in sats. You should be pricing your earnings in sats. It's what I do. And it's actually like I price my services in sats. And because of that, my costs are going down. It is cheaper and cheaper to book me priced in sats for a one-on-one session, and more expensive in dollars. But dollars are worthless. Dollars are worthless. It's just the world doesn't know it yet. The world does not know it yet. Yeah, this is interesting. This is an interesting comment. Still waiting for the real all-time high in gold terms, right? Gold is historically what we can measure things from. Let's see, XUD is it? Or is it AUD? No, that's Australian. Gold. Let's just put in gold, see what happens. What is the chart for pricing it in gold? Oh, XAU. Come on, Bitcoin. Where are you? Bitcoin in gold. Bitcoin in gold. Let me just find it on Google instead. If anybody has the trading pair for TradingView, let me know. Bitcoin priced in gold. I know Google will do it, but it's just so less aesthetically pleasing. And I can't chart it. Okay, let's see. I found something here. Let's see if this works. This sucks. Somebody please find me the pairing on TradingView. This is brutal. Let's take a look at this on here. I don't know. Priced in gold. Bitcoin. Yeah, I mean this chart that is showing it. No. None of these are what I want. Bitcoin to XAUD. Yeah, this might work. This might work. All right. So what this is showing is essentially that we are actually below the all-time highs priced in gold of 2021. And we briefly, it looks like this is actually the all-time high here. You can actually see we are lower priced in gold than we were before in August. And this is because gold is absolutely ripping. Gold is absolutely ripping. This is this might be like one of the best trades of all time in my mind. You sell gold here, you buy Bitcoin here. To me, that makes a hell of a lot of sense. I mean, gold or Bitcoin in fiat terms is just broken above some serious resistance, right? Resistance level right here, I would say. And now where do we go, right? Like if we continue following the trend we've followed, that's basically 140,000 USD. If we continue to follow the trend that we've been following, and I say we do. Personally, I say we do. For Hoofty, I think if you type BTC/gold in the chart, I tried that, I believe. BTC. Let me see. I didn't do it all in one thing. Nah, maybe crypto. No. Forex? No. No, not worked for me there, VHF. Dull geek, one dull geek. Oh no, are you a technical analysis guy? I don't trade off technical analysis or anything, but charts are a reflection of buyers and sellers. That's all it is. And when you can see, these questions are ridiculous. When did this chart with start with these channels, lines, ranges, technical analysis, bull poop? It never started with this. I'm showing all-time highs. I don't know. Have you not been around here for this show? I don't know. But yeah, basically, charts do show buyers and sellers, and you can tell where there's a range of sellers coming out to meet the market, which is a useful thing to see. And I think it's ridiculous not to value that. Like people that do these things with like Fibonacci sequences and stuff like that, it gets to be a bit ridiculous, I would say. To me, these are zones of where previous buyers are. And with that, or sellers, you can have a more probabilistic understanding of potential possibilities. Again, I don't trade these things. At most, I might increase or decrease my covered calls depending on where the price currently is. But following trends of prices, it makes sense. Yeah, it's pretty funny. Yeah, it's fine. It's fine to be generally skeptical about anything. To me, I'm a bit of a hybrid trader. Well, I'm not a trader at all, but I look at macro, I look at technical analysis, if that's what you want to call it, but I look at charts to see where buyers are and where sellers are and where volume is. That's why I usually fade the information on the weekends because there just isn't enough information. But when you take all of this in, you can see trends a little bit more and see where we potentially are. But again, none of it really matters that much to me because I'm vast majority of my portfolio is in spot. And when you're in spot, you sleep easy. You just chill. You just chill. BTC XAU. Yeah, interesting. Okay, I tried that as well. Something wrong with my aha. Found it. There we go. You're right. Okay, so I was putting the slash in there and it was getting rid of this. Let's go to the weekly. This is Bitcoin versus gold. And yeah, the chart that I did find on Google there is the same. You can see we have not hit all-time highs priced in gold. And gold is sound money, right? Gold has maintained its purchasing power. There's that saying where it buys a fine man's suit, right? At any time throughout history. This is a reflection, I would say, of the debasement trade being a really good thesis for understanding what's happening in the markets today. I think the money allocators around the world are looking for assets that are not controlled by decentralized assets. I think again, this kind of comes back to like this whole idea of how important and how valuable decentralization is. When you're reliant on one entity, their actions have outsized impact on you when you're relying on them in whatever way, in this case, financially. So what the Fed does impacts you if you're a central bank somewhere in the world and all you hold is treasuries of different durations. And instead, you could hold a dumb, shiny rock that is really hard to get, that has some utility, that is not used as money, but has a massive monetary premium because the monetary financial institutions around the world value it for its decentralized and non-controlled, not centrally controlled aspects of it. Now they're completely missing and fading Bitcoin if they're buying gold over Bitcoin. I think that's the truth. But regardless, gold is performing really well. So regardless if you're missing the mark and misunderstanding Bitcoin and buying gold instead, you're still doing incredibly well in this recent time frame. So You've missed the mark in a sort of a technical side, but what you're doing is working, especially compared to other things, right? Compared to what other things central banks around the world buy, which is treasury bonds and debt of different foreign nations, and the toxic assets within their own company, if you're the or your own country, if you're the United States, right? These things are terrible performers. So these things are terrible performers, and gold is having this bid from the central banks around the world, essentially, mostly in the East. And I think that it's a matter of time before they say, okay, we've hit our gold. Maybe let's get a little bit of this Bitcoin thing too. Or as the value of that grows, right, there's the rebalancing. So if they did have some Bitcoin and it's sort of under the table, that Bitcoin again is going down, right? As we can see in this chart, it's going down in priced in gold. So their gold holding percentage is going up. If these institutions rebalance, they're actually going to need to rebalance upwards and buy more Bitcoin if they have any already. But who knows? Who knows about any of that? You're investing on belief alone. I'm not sure what that reference is. Yep, save in dollar cost average. That's what I do as well. Dollar cost average is definitely the best strategy. It's in some ways it is, in some ways it isn't, as we kind of alluded to at the beginning of this show, right? It's if I just lump summed when I first came up with the idea of creating a treasury for pleb tools, my buy would be basically 155 Canadian. My average purchase price, because I've dollar cost averaged every single week, is 159. So I would have more sats if I had just dollar cost averaged. Sorry, if I just lump summed instead of dollar cost averaging. But again, dollar cost averaging, as you can see, it just gives you this sort of average price. Like 159 is probably like right here, right? Or let's see, 159. Yeah, 159 right there. That's very, very average, right? Dollar cost average is getting you the average over time, except the average over time of Bitcoin. If you're, again, time frames matter and all of that, but if you're dollar cost averaging, you're not trying to time the market at all anyway, but you're buying an asset that over time goes up and to the right, so you're getting less of it. So as much as dollar cost averaging works really well to eliminate the emotional side of it, it's formulaic, you don't have to think about it, and for those reasons maybe it is the best strategy. But in the actual just like logical aspect of how much Bitcoin can I get, lump sum beats it out. Maybe there's a strategy of like a simple moving average again, and then say this dips below the moving average, you could double down on your DCA. That might just get you some more cheap sats. I'm not sure. But I don't think any strategy is a losing strategy when it has to do with exchanging dollars for Bitcoin. That's ultimately the best strategy, regardless if you lump sum or DCA. And Solar Satoshis has a lump sum, then DCA. Yeah. I don't have any dry powder left to lump sum, but when I was comparing DCA to lump sum, but rather trying, what I was comparing DCA to wasn't lump sum, but rather trying to trade in and out to find highs and lows. Yeah, that's a really good point. So there's, I just listened to a thing actually, and I didn't look at the data, but there's basically, it compared all these different strategies: lump sum, DCA, buying the tops, buying the lows, and failing to buy at all, like looking for the dips and not buying. And basically not buying was by far the worst strategy. And then I think buying the lows, obviously the best strategy, completely impossible to accurately do. Buying the tops was actually a fine strategy, and did because this is like local tops, right, in an asset that's going up over time. And I think it was comparable. Like DCA and buying the tops was just like DCA was just a little bit better than that, and then lump summing right away was the best. So it's like there's this spectrum of options, and the only one that is the worst, like by far the worst, is not being invested in the asset that goes up. So yeah, exactly as Solar Satoshi says right here, conviction is the best strategy. Do you prefer MicroStrategy or MacroStrategy? I think it's just strategy now there, Dirk fan. I think it's just strategy, which I prefer. What is that? Elon's got that thing, macro hard instead of Microsoft. He's got, yeah, anyway. Maybe it's a stupid move, but I'm currently over 50% portfolio in cash. You've been missing out on some gains. I mean, every gain is paper until you use it, right? Like until you use it. I don't mean it's paper until you realize it, because you're realizing it back into cash, which I don't believe in. I think every gain is paper until you use it to for something in your life. And then it's realized, and then it might, have been a bad decision to buy a car or something like that. But yeah, I don't know. Josh has a good question here. Why not just use STRC if you're going to hold cash? Yeah, it'd be interesting to hear if you're just holding like actual straight up cash, or if that's in a short term money market or high yield savings account or something like STRC. I have heard actually a pretty compelling, as much as I have some resistance against this guy from some of the stuff that he said, which is absolutely batshit crazy. Josh Man on Twitter, he's been talking about how STRC, it has this ability, like the ability for it to go up is partially derived by their ability to increase the interest rate. But once the price goes down, so if that's how they can make the price go up, if everybody tries to exit that position, that the market is only so liquid, which would draw the price of those shares down, and their only ability to drive the price up is to raise interest rates. But if everybody's trying to exit at once, it creates a huge liquidity crunch, and prices can go absolutely crazy on an illiquid instrument like that. Which is pretty interesting. Maybe I'll bring up his tweets. Actually, I found them kind of compelling, but I feel like there's another way that he's maybe missing. Josh, man, I don't even follow this guy anymore. I don't think. He's so annoying. Let's see. Let me find. I know this is very riveting. All right. Let's see. This is incredibly riveting stuff, isn't it, guys? Imagine if I was on Zapstream. Oh, shit. All right, here we go. STRC is supposed to siphon liquidity away from the TradFi system with its high yield, which many suggest can be a place to park cash instead of those that support the fiat banking network. This is sailor's folly. Just remember that the fiat banking system has been around a long time and has figured out a way to build a moat around demand deposits so that they don't break the buck. Hiking rates on STRC to maintain/defend a peg or price level is not going to work when depositors want to get their money back out. So if enough people at once wanted to get their money back out, which is his argument here, the interest rate is not going to be reflexive enough to compensate so that people maintain their STRC position, and therefore it could crash like crazy and then take a long time to build back up. Hopefully all the STRC buyers are non-Bitcoiners. Otherwise, they might be Bitcoiners looking for a good yield while keeping some dry powder, and then they could all rush the exit at the same time, specifically to buy the Bitcoin dip. I think this is all unlikely, and I think there is. I got to look into this, because he's making me sort of second guess. But I thought that there was a way for them to redeem shares of STRC to actually get rid of them. And again, I think that has to be above the $99. So maybe he's talking about it getting below the peg from people selling, and then them not being able to redeem shares. That's possible. But if they're able to redeem shares, they're basically able to stop the flow, the exit flow, because they become the buyers at that price, which would cost them money, but it's something they could do, which I think is true. I also think that Josh Man is he's like an agent provocateur. Like, I don't know where he's coming from. I think he's coming from his own position of being like a trader, probably, but he throws a wrench in the gears of people, I think very intentionally. It's like this, yeah, it's this like he's like trying to. I think he's trying to manipulate people, actually, to be honest. So I would be careful looking at. So with that though, what I do with this guy and with anybody who has different opinions than me is I look into their opinions and see if there's any validity to it. So I need to check and see. All right, I need to do another recheck as much as I've already looked into STRC. I need to recheck and see if the scenarios that he's talking about here, what would happen if everybody wanted out of their STRC position. I'm not saying that's highly likely, but what would happen? Would it draw down to a level where MSTR is not able to repurchase those shares, raise the dividend enough to maintain some semblance of a peg? If it gets depegged, right, if it goes below, what's the consequence of that? Is it just waiting a little while until there's enough market demand again in STRC to bring it back to the level? Could that be a problem? Yeah, in the short term, that could be a problem, but in the long term, it's trending towards that peg. At least it has been, and potentially could continue to do so. And again, they could just raise the dividend to do that, even if it took time. And I think that's the main thing with Josh, actually, the Josh man, is that he has an incredibly low time preference to be in the Bitcoin game. He's a trader. So I think with that, he comes up with these issues with things, and those issues are short-term issues that basically iron themselves out over time based on the incentives and the structure of things. So I think it could be an issue, a depegging issue, if enough people tried to exit STRC. Again, this is just from the top of my head here, just thinking this through live. I think it could be an issue, but I think it would be a temporary issue that would eventually trend towards its peg again. But that could be a serious issue if you were that person that he described, where you were wanting to get out of your position to buy Bitcoin, and you now have to sell STRC at a discount to what you bought it when it was at its peg, and it's depegged, and you were looking for just like some stability there, cash on the side, dry powder with a good interest rate, so that you could buy Bitcoin at a certain time. But if it depegs at that specific time that you want to buy Bitcoin, then you're able to buy less Bitcoin because you're having to sell at a discount. Potentially an issue, I would say. Is STRC basically a money market fund for BTC? It's targeted towards people who buy money market funds. It's supposed to be pegged between 99 and 101, or it's attempted to be pegged at that through different mechanisms, like I was talking about. And yet it pays 10.25%, and which is more than double money market funds. And it's backed by the creditworthiness and the Bitcoin holdings of Strategy indirectly. Yeah. How strongly would you recommend moving away from Ledger? It was my first hardware wallet, but now that I'm learning, now that I'm a bit more knowledgeable, I learned that it's actually a bit iffy. Yeah, I mean, it's like 70% of the hardware wallets out there are Ledger, and there's only sort of been like some sort of peripheral problems. A lot of phishing attacks target people with ledgers. Ledger has a backdoor to be able to get your seed phrase if you opt into it. Who knows if you've opted into it without opting into it. So these things are everything's closed source from Ledger Live to the firmware and everything. I would recommend watching my series on the cold card queue, and I would recommend not just doing a sort of a horizontal upgrade to a Trezor that's more open source, or a Jade that's more open source, that is very similar and lacks some ability. If you're ready, if you think you're ready, if you watch those videos and you understand what's going on there, I would make the jump to full open source, to full verifiability. I would make the jump to a cold card personally, if you feel like you can do that. VHF, been quite a journey the last 4 years. I got in with zero knowledge or experience, gone from consuming content from like 25 different creators to like 3 or 5. Most content creators in this space are just paid shills. Yeah, absolutely. That's 100% true. Yeah, I think I've done 5 paid or 5 sponsored videos in my life. 4 with the Bitcoin Way and 1 with Orange Pill app. This was early on, earlier on, like last year sometime, I think, or early this year. I just didn't really enjoy the experience that much. I just figured, yeah, I'll throw some affiliate links of stuff that I actually use, stuff that I actually believe in. Yeah, I'm just not interested in doing content for other people. And I'm sure, I mean, yeah, I've used the Orange Pill app, and I'm sure Bitcoin Way is actually pretty good. I've heard some good things, but it just doesn't sit that well with me. I'd rather just do affiliate stuff where people can choose to buy it. I'm not actively really promoting it. It's just things that I actually use. Like, yeah, I have an affiliate link for, Gold Card Q because I use it. Start 9 because I use it. Bitcoin Well because I use them. All that stuff. Ali, thanks for your videos. Thank you. I understand. Thanks to you, I understand MSTR better. Cool. Do you know about BTCI? Basic research shows 50K worth of shares gives about $1,000 a month in payout. I know a little bit about it. I've watched a couple videos on it. It's American, so it doesn't interest me personally as much. So I haven't felt super compelled to make a video on it. It's essentially, in some ways, I think they hold the HODL ETF, and then there's all these regulations within the US where you're not actually like allowed to have all of your position in a single equity, and there's all these holding requirements for ETFs. So they hold a huge amount of treasuries, and then they borrow against those to basically participate in the options market and volatility harvesting in some respect, with the HODL ETF and beyond. And they arb the not arb they harvest the volatility. They participate in the options market by selling calls, and so on. Now, I don't know that exactly for specifically is their strategy, because there are ones that do like sort of a credit spread and yeah, all sorts of different ways of earning income in, again, derivatives. And yeah, so I don't know. I think if you actually look at them, if you actually like factor in the amount that they pay out, compared to the underlying asset that you could buy, a lot of these actually underperform. A lot of these underperform. And I think I personally, like, I hold MSTE, which is not something that is even, there's not even something remotely similar to that in America, which is unfortunate because it's a really, really cool structure. They hold 100% shares in MSTR. They apply 25% leverage. So they take out loans, low interest rate Canadian loans, buy more MSTR. So they're actually over allocated to more than 100%. Then they sell covered calls on the shares themselves. It's not some crazy synthetic poor man's covered call. And then they do that for about 30 to 50% of the shares they hold. So you get this leveraged upside plus a capped upside plus options harvesting of volatility, and that's all paid out to you. And the share price has performed pretty similarly to MSTR. It's an incredible product, actually. It's really well designed. It does have added complexity. I think all of these things have added complexity over the underlying, just holding the underlying. And doesn't make sense in the most cases. Like, it doesn't make sense to hold Misty, the US version, in my opinion, because it's so much added complexity. And all of YieldMax's products are actually designed to trend to zero and constantly do reverse stock splits to keep the share price up, keep the assets under management, and they do massive payouts to attract new buyers. It's terrible design, in my opinion. And basically people just hold a portion of that to juice their income fund or something, which might work depending on, your age or something, but it probably makes a lot more sense to just hold the underlying and sell shares. And historically, actually, it has. I did a full video detailing this, which is really funny. But anyway, yeah, Matt actually thinks that MSTY is good. Again, yeah, I disagree with that. I think it's better to hold MSTR. maybe sell 10 delta covered calls like I've made some videos on, or sell shares when you need to. And that might seem really counterintuitive if you haven't looked deeper into this, if you don't have an understanding of what is going on with these ETFs. But they are basically doing the same thing with NAV erosion, right? The value of the assets that they hold are decreasing. The amount of value that you're holding with those shares, even though nominally those shares might make might be the same amount of shares, they're still the value underlying those shares is decreasing, which is the same thing when you sell shares, right? The value of your portfolio is decreasing because you're selling shares, but it's actually decreasing less because of less complexity, less fees, and those things just aren't efficient. So yeah, I appreciate the 50 sats, $1.52. Not sure where they ended up. Maybe at my other, maybe my wallet in my description is actually different than my wallet that I have here, which I know I need to fix those. But you probably sent them there. I appreciate the 50 sats. Thanks very much. That's this question here. McHodl, I'm late, but did you see the interview with Litecoin creator saying that he would have made more money if he had just bought Bitcoin than develop Litecoin? Yeah. And he sold, he dumped at 375, which was like a local top, I believe, of Litecoin. A lot of people that are in Litecoin really don't like the fact that he completely exited his position and basically used retail as exit liquidity, which that's the playbook. When you make an altcoin, that's the playbook, baby. That project can survive and die to Bitcoin slowly over time after the founder exits or while the founder's still there. It doesn't really matter, but they're all going to zero against Bitcoin. By the way, guys, I forgot to do this at the start, so we're going to do a couple of them, but I like to share these things. Let's see. These are, I got some points here on Bitcoin Well. This is like the reward program. If you sign up, you actually get some free points, and you can play this game here where you toss some points in the wishing well, and then you scan this QR code. So the first person to scan this QR code that's about to pop up with their Lightning wallet will actually get 401 sats for free. I like to do this. This is fun. So we'll do a few of these, and while I answer the rest of your questions. He also said, the Litecoin guy also said that his advice for somebody getting into crypto is just to buy Bitcoin, which is really good advice. Is there a way to anonymize the funds that you're currently holding in KYC UTXOs? There's a way to de-link yourself potentially from them, but each one of those, it's a public ledger. So you sort of, every single time you do these processes, you can de-link yourself further and further. You could look into something like eCash. I can't really talk about it too much personally on this YouTube channel. We talk about this a lot more on our Maple Bitcoin school community, and we do a live every Friday that you can actually join on the Zoom call with your audio, with your mic, with your camera, and ask questions like that, and we can actually answer those on there. But it's really hard to talk about stuff like this on YouTube. You'll get shadow banned and demonetized. I'm already demonetized, but I'll get, they'll start, taking money out of my bank for talking about this kind of stuff. Not actually, but it's not good. So I would look into eCash. I would just simply say that. I would look into Lightning. I would look into custodial Lightning services. I'll just say that. Unfortunately, I can't say more. Nobody here. Oh yeah, this is another 514 sats, everybody. Top Shelf Info, one of the few that go through the thread and answer questions, just not the people who super chat. Keep it up, man. Nobody's super chatting me right now because I am not monetized, demonetized. But you can send the Bitcoin equivalent to not the QR code that's in the middle, but the QR code that's on the side. You could, you could send it there. I appreciate that. Nobody here. That's very kind of you. We're going to do one more of these tosses, everybody. Matt, I can't predict it more. If more MSTR preferred will be released, which will share the wealth over the sum. Which will share the wealth over the sum. I'm not sure what you mean there. I can't predict if more MSTR preferred will be released. Yes, more MSTR preferred will be released, which will allow them to acquire more Bitcoin, which will share the wealth over the sum. I'm not sure what you mean share the wealth over the sum. Oh. 401 sats is a lot. It's like $2 US soon. Yes, it will be. It will be about $2. It's about half a dollar right now or so. Actually, what is it, like 790 something sats is probably $1 US. So, there's a few dollars flying around, a lot more sats flying around. But just think about dollar sat parity. This is going to be a lot here. Oh, we're doing a fourth, everybody. MSTR is disappointing today, as usual. I wouldn't say as usual, but as of late, yes, it is going sideways. I am new here. Nice to see you. Thanks for stopping by. You can scan this, the 444. Oh my God, it's a sign. Josh Man is right. 444. We are going higher. That's the sign, everybody. Why are you demonetized? It was not because of my content. Actually, it was an error on my AdSense, and there's just no repercussion. There's no contact. It's just insane. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see how that goes. Need to read the docs. Learning curve is medium. Thanks for the live stream today. Hopefully you can get monetized again soon. Yes, hopefully. Could explain fiat standard falling and Bitcoin raising. Why? Could explain fiat standard failing maybe, and Bitcoin raising. Why? Hard for me to answer that question. Hard for me to say that question, but basically dollars are worthless. Dollars are going down in value because more people are selling them and more people are buying assets because people realize that you have to buy assets to outpace debasement. And dollars can be created at will, printed at no cost, and they are. And the whole system is absolutely unfair and corrupt. And so you have to hold assets to maintain your standard of living. Everything is going up in price, cost of living, everything is going up. Not because things are more expensive to create. It's actually inverse. Things are getting easier and cheaper to create. Technology is getting better. Humans are naturally deflationary as we could become more and more efficient. So things should actually go down in price. They're going up in price because they're priced in a denominator that is falling in value. And as more and more people realize that, they try to escape by buying assets. And they'll buy the assets they're familiar with that they feel are safe. And Bitcoin is one of those that is becoming more and more familiar and becoming more and more safe and is actually perfectly designed to be the new monetary network. So yeah. Just a couple last questions here. I know everybody's coming in right here at the end. I usually only do this for an hour. I appreciate all of the questions, all of the views, the eyeballs, the donos. People are donating to this here. I really appreciated that. That's helpful since the demonetization. It's value for value today, guys. What do you think of the amount of NOTs nodes having risen astronomically, but the core nodes staying relatively the same? Yeah, I mean, they did go down, I think, at first a little bit. Core nodes, there's a lot of people that have sort of voiced discontent with what's happening, maybe indifference, maybe just being unsure, maybe not knowing what side to pick, and just remaining their nodes to be the same and not updating. And that doesn't directly show as much of a protest against what Core 30 is doing, but it's nonetheless people less so voicing, but more so just standing with not making a change. So I think that's a lot of the case is people are just not going to update. I think a lot of people are not going to update. I'm sure some people will, and I'm sure there'll be more opportunities of higher defaults being spread around and being included in blocks. And I don't see that not happening, to be honest. I also don't see it destroying Bitcoin as some people think it will. I don't think that there's a need to fork it or reverse it or any of that stuff. But I think we will see some problems with it. And, but I don't think those problems are catastrophic. I think that we will be able to deal with it. And I think the silver lining of all of this is that more people are choosing to run a node in general. Total nodes have gone up. Decentralization of the network has gone up. Self-sovereignty has gone up. The ability for people to actually use Bitcoin, the network, has gone up, as opposed to allow somebody else to use the network for them, which is what you're doing when you don't run a node. There's less than 21 million and 8 or so billion people. $1 or $2 per sat is inevitable, even in shrinking fiat ship world. Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Not only the dollar is useless, but also euro. All fiat currencies are useless. They're useful as a temporary medium of exchange, but in the history book, Bitcoin will look like a blip in the history book. It'll look like we went from the gold standard to Bitcoin, and there was this temporary, dark age of using fiat in between there. If we look at Bitcoin, this is so cool. This is something I just did yesterday that was so really awesome. Let's look at this for a sec. I want to show you this tab right here. Look at this Bitcoin chart. This is in years. This is insane. This has gone from nothing, right? And this only shows back to January 2011, which is maybe when it started getting listed on things. Yeah, this is Bitstamp. So this is when it got listed on Bitstamp, I guess. This looks like straight up, and people are worried about the red on here, right? People are worried about these 4-year cycles. This is what they're worried about. This thing is absolutely came out of nowhere and is taking over, and people have yet to realize it. But in the history books, this will look like it happened in an instant. And what we're living through will just be a paragraph in a book. I mean, there'll be much more than that, but it can be summed up into a paragraph. Art Vandalay, thanks for the stream. Again, I'm just going to finish off these comments and go towards it. Have you heard about the Bitcoin Knots dude wanting to fork Bitcoin, hard fork? Yeah, but it's not really a hard fork, and he's just there's a couple things there. It's the ability to like have a sort of a zero knowledge confirmation that these blocks do exist, but to not actually hold them within your own node, but still be consensus valid as a node runner. I believe that's how it works. And this is somebody having a conversation about possible things to do, not actually planning to do it. So I don't know, largely overblown in my opinion, and targeted towards individuals. Again, there's actually the knots and core. It started off, the debate and stuff started off with a lot of ad hominems, a lot of calling people Nazis and communists and all this stuff. It's gotten worse. It's gotten way worse. The conversation has devolved incredibly. It's now just like personal attacks across the board. Yeah, not super happy about where it's going, to be honest, in that way. I am from India here. Nobody knows the future of Bitcoin. They all think the currency is better, and they seem the Bitcoin like is a kind of scam. Yeah, crazy. Yeah, and I know India is really hard on Bitcoin. You can buy Bitcoin in the exchange. You can't take self-custody of it for the vast majority of exchanges. There might be exceptions there, and I would highly advise looking for those. Peer-to-peer, again, is something I talked about here. The peer-to-peer ecosystem really needs to grow for people like you that are in India that cannot take the Bitcoin off exchanges. Pakistan is another place I've had a viewer talk about where they cannot do that. You can buy and trade it, but it's capital controls locked down on those on and off ramps. We need more peer-to-peer. We need peer-to-peer to be better, and we need it so that people can escape the capital controls of their world. Feels like a lot of people are setting up their first node on knots, so net new is knots, not core. Yep, that's a good way to put it too. 2011 Bitcoin reached $1 for the first time. That's awesome. All right. We are officially 18 months after the halving, so time to top soon. Yeah, maybe, but probably not. I think a lot of the 4-year cycles is coincidence, actually. Sin Diesel, what's up? When in doubt, zoom out. Exactly. And when you zoom out and you look at those yearly candlesticks, it's crazy. That puts in perspective a short intermediate dark period in fiat land. Exactly. Yeah. Hey, what's up, guys? When 15K again? Am I too late? Nope. The only time you're too late to Bitcoin is when you can no longer trade worthless fiat for it. If you have to work directly for Bitcoin and there's no other option to acquire Bitcoin, just as there's no other option to trade. I mean, you have to trade goods and services to get US dollars. That's the future of Bitcoin. You have to trade goods and services for Bitcoin. If you have other currencies, you can trade them for Bitcoin, but at serious deprecated amounts, and potentially those other currencies won't even exist to a degree where it's worth doing that. So when that happens, that is when you're too late to Bitcoin. HODL or trade the 4-year cycle and to multiply. More and more people saying the 4-year cycle is broken. I'm not trading the 4-year cycle. I'll just say that. A lot of people will say whatever about my opinion on that. I don't really care. I'm not trading the 4-year cycle. I'm holding Bitcoin as it goes up, as it goes down. And when you look again at that chart, you think, okay, well, I can hold this period right here. And inevitably, it's going all the way. It's going all the way. Where's it going? It's going to infinity, guys. We also need a blow off top if we're gonna see a real 4-year cycle BS that might happen. We need a blow off top, which we have not come anywhere close to. Guys, these questions are pouring in. I gotta go. We're 10 minutes over. If we're gonna see if this time is different, yeah, we'll see. Every time is different, whether we believe it or not. That is the case. There's always changes happening. I definitely think the institutional players aren't going to let the price dip as much as it has in the past. Some of the institutional players do have control over their ability to buy. BlackRock is not one of them. BlackRock buys for other people. They have created a vehicle for buying. So people that think Larry Fink is buying all the Bitcoin or BlackRock's buying all the Bitcoin, they're doing it for people that are buying the ETF. Those people could be just as emotional as anybody else. They could sell if they wanted to, and that would reflect selling within that ETF. But institutions like MSTR and so on, yes, they could continue buying, and algorithmically so, and lowering volatility to the downside, which is what we've seen and what we will potentially continue to see. And until we don't see that, my thesis is that we continue to go higher. We continue to grind higher until I see some evidence of. I think we have to see a blow off top before we see a correction. We have to see lack of dip buying to see a downward grind. There's all these things that we just there's no sense in just because it happened 4 years ago means that it's going to happen now. No, things need to line up for something to happen, right? Everything needs to come into place for something to happen. We have yet to see that. It's also a bigger pool, so the dip will likely not be as big. Potentially, yeah, it's, money is really about liquidity, buyers and sellers. So if there's all of a sudden no volume, price can move pretty quickly, but we'll see. If I hold 0.1 Bitcoin, how many years need to hold that? What is your opinion or advice for that? Yeah, I mean, you hold Bitcoin forever. If you can borrow against it at some point, that might make sense. If you have to spend it at a certain point, that also makes sense. But I would not sell Bitcoin for anything else. And then the amount of Bitcoin that you have to trade for your lifestyle, it becomes less and less. And you can do that. You could sell only the amount that you need to, which could be less than the value of it actually raising over time. So like, say your expenses are 10% of your Bitcoin stack. Bitcoin raises 20%, you're actually outpacing your expenses, and your purchasing power continues to grow even when you're selling bits of your Bitcoin. Do you personally buy all your Bitcoin peer-to-peer? No, I don't. Unfortunately, no, I don't. I buy a lot of it from Bitcoin Well. Yeah. So again, I'm part of the problem, right? Centralized exchange right there. Well, they're doing the best they can as a centralized exchange to facilitate non-KYC, not peer-to-peer, but they have ATMs which have the lowest spreads. So yeah, they're the best option in Canada for non-KYC, except for peer-to-peer exchanges. So yeah, there's quite a premium on peer-to-peer right now, and yeah, I don't know, UTXOs are UTXOs, and I think there's a reason to have KYC and non-KYC and all that. So there's a little bit more beyond what we can go here, but yeah, I'm just going to finish this up. The 4-year cycle is not broken until we make it to August of 2026, and we have to hit all-time high. Yeah, we'll see, man. I'm very, very, very skeptical of the 4-year cycle. Hello, welcome, and sorry. Gradually, then suddenly is too much of a risk to the 4-year cycle trade. Germany sell their 50,000 Bitcoin. Actually, do I have more? No, Pleb Tool still has less Bitcoin than Germany. Germany still has like what is it like? I think like 800,000 sats or something like that. I only have 500,000 in my pleb tools. It happened 3 times so far. Can we make it a 4th consecutive year force cycle? Woo, next couple months we'll hopefully hold the trend and we'll see some crazy ups. I think so. The cycle seems to be playing out as predicted so far. This will be interesting to see what happens. We'll cut grass for 25 Satoshi. Eventually, that'll be the case. All right, everybody. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Thanks for the donos. A few people donated to the Lightning address right here. There's also a Lightning address in the description of this channel. Check out all the affiliate links. Like you can book a session with me one-on-one if you have questions. I really appreciate all of your guys' time being on the chat, asking me questions. I mean, we went a little over here because of all the great questions, all the comments. Great joke. Love it. All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you on the next one.